So from growers, we're now moving on to looking at consumer products. And I'm delighted to welcome to the stage, we're going to have another fireside chat here, talking about his work harnessing biosolutions to create high-performing, sustainable, formulated products. I'm delighted to welcome Alan Davies, who is a Senior Director and Chemical and Surfactants R&D Leader at P&G. So, Alan, welcome. Well, welcome to the conference, Alan. I'm delighted to have you here today. If we can start things off, just give us a little bit of introduction and your background at P&G.
Well, Leo, first of all, thank you very much indeed for the invitation to be here. It's an incredible event. Congratulations on pulling this together. I'm excited and honored to be part of the discussion here. So as you said, I'm Al Davies. I've been at P&G for 30 years now. I've spent most of those years in different product development roles, creating innovation for consumers in hair care, personal cleansing, a little bit of fabric and home care. In more recent years, I've actually pivoted a little bit to be a lot more involved in materials innovation. So moving from formulation into looking more at new molecule design in partnership with our suppliers and others in the industry. So that's really been the role in the last years. At P&G.
Fantastic. So you have quite a technical role there at P&G, a lot of science in your day-to-day life. But I'd like to start things off by thinking a little bit about what you're looking to achieve for the consumers of P&G's many products. If we can just ask the audience here, hands up if you think you or your family may have used a Procter & Gamble or P&G product in the past year. Okay, that's everyone. Okay, so we're all consumers.
Thank you.
We're all customers. It's fantastic. But all customers have different needs. Some of us want sustainability. Some of us want affordability, cost of living crisis and all that. And some just want products that work. So how do you think about these differing demands when you are developing new biosolutions at P&G?
No, I like the question a lot, Leo, and it gives me an opportunity to maybe shift just for a moment from biosolutions to maybe defining a little bit the problem as we see it. What are we looking for solutions for? So really at P&G, we're operating from a principle that consumers should not be asked to choose between the performance of a product, the affordability of that product, and sustainability. That's not a trade-off that we want to ask anybody to make. And we've really been in business for 186 years now, bringing consumers products that we call that are irresistibly superior. And what we mean by irresistibly superior is a level of performance and quality that's engineered into that product that the consumer will miss if they move back to a different product. And that's really what builds lasting brand equity for us. So with that, what we're really looking for are solutions that enable us to both drive product superiority, create value, and a sustainability improvement and align with our goals and the consumer's goals on sustainability. And we call that strategy winning on the trifecta. So performance, value, and sustainability. And it's a very easy strategy for me to sit here and say. But we know from experience it's anything but easy to deliver on those three things together.
So you're not, you can hear me? So you're not prioritizing one over the other. It's you've got to get all those three things together, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, for us, ultimately, that's really what we're looking for. We don't see a product that's sustainable for the sake of sustainability. That then doesn't sell, doesn't deliver the job, underperforms the job, requires the consumer maybe to repeat the job. That's not helping anybody with their sustainability goals. So ultimately, yes, we're looking for solutions that deliver all three.
So can you share some examples of where P&G has developed some of these products?
Yeah, let me, if I may, I'll share a couple of product examples on brands that hopefully folks are familiar with. And I'll also share an example from our P&G Chemicals where we're working some biosolutions ourselves. So from a product point of view, Our Tide business is really being focused on how do we move to effective cold water laundry. So as we study the footprint of doing laundry, what we learn is that most of those Scope 3 emissions in the cradle-to-grave life cycle of laundry, most of those emissions are coming in the home from heating water to do the laundry. And so what we see is the ability to make a massive sustainability impact if we can get effective cleaning in cold water. So to deliver that, we've got several technologies that we've been developing together with our suppliers. Enzymes are very important, and having the right enzyme mix for cold water cleaning is critical. We're also working new surfactant systems that deliver much better grease solubility in cold water. And all of that is adding up to the ability to actually run the washing machine cold and get excellent results the first time. We know we've saved something like 19 million tons of CO2 and counting in North America for the laundry business from enabling consumers to do that. And it's also, of course, very good value for consumers. If you can effectively wash in cold water, utility bills go down, and we save a lot of money for consumers. So there's that motivation too, right? That's the value part. So you see the superior performance, you see the value, you see the sustainability coming together. Another example that I'll quickly share is the new Dawn Power Wash. So this is the spray that you may or may not have seen. What we learned as we were working with consumers in their home was an increasing trend away from the kind of old habit of washing dishes in the sink, maybe at the end of a meal. As consumers move to maybe smaller, like homes and condos, open plan living and so on, consumers were moving a lot more to kind of wash on the go. So cleaning pots and pans kind of in the middle of the cooking process. And the way they were achieving that was running the faucet, running the tap for a long time, using a lot of water, usually hot water, and a lot of product in order to do that kind of clean on the go change. So what we've been developing is new technology. We call it the Dawn Power Wash, which doesn't require any water. It foams up by itself when you spray it onto a greasy pan or a pot or whatever, and very quickly, using a lot of chelate and bio-based chelants, breaks down the soils on the pan and then allows you to just rinse that off very quickly. So again, it's a helping the consumer with her sustainability footprint. Is really important in that innovation. And then the final example there that I'll quickly share within P&G Chemicals. So we have a chemicals division, an oleochemicals division. It's 180 years of really producing bio-based materials. What we've been focused on more recently is really helping our customers to address their sustainability solutions by really thinking about how do we leverage our own internal investments in our own Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. So we've been investing to bring those to zero. We're on track to be a net zero Scope 1 and Scope 2 by 2030. At the same time, we've been looking at how do we really leverage all of the investments we've made in responsible sourcing over the last several decades. So we have responsibly sourced oils that have a very low footprint, and we're putting all that together with a lot of investment in LCA science to bundle all that up into a new line of ultra-low carbon materials that are carbon negative. That life cycle has been, that LCA and the mass balance approach has been certified by the TUV Rhineland organization. That's a very, very rigorous process of certification. So putting all that together so that our customers can have those low carbon solutions.
Some fantastic solutions there. And tell us a little bit also about, I believe you've been doing some work in packaging as well. What have you been doing in that space?
Yeah, packaging is a very interesting area. So we continue to explore things like bioresins and so on and so forth. Packaging is also an example where, less can also be a really good strategy. So one of the innovations that we recently launched on the Head & Shoulders brand is our Head & Shoulders Bare product. And that's a bottle that's engineered to use 45% less plastic than traditional bottles. There's a lot of physics that goes into that and into understanding, how to structure that, how to build a bottle that still has integrity, that will still run on our lines at speed. but uses a lot less plastic, and it's extremely delightful for the consumer to use. You can create some really interesting tactile experiences when you move to packaging like that. Again, hitting on those superiority elements for the consumer. So that's one of the ways we're going there, is really use less, in addition to looking at what would bio alternatives look like.
Fantastic. And as you're looking for alternatives to fossil-based products, so you're looking for, so you've got some candidate bio-based drop-in solutions. What are you looking for in those candidates in particular?
I think Jessica and panel hit on some really important points earlier, as we talked about. Jessica talked about how do we elevate beyond simple mass balance to techniques like book and claim. We know that we cannot move overnight from a fossil-based material world to bio-based. We need to do that, stepwise. We need to scale that over time. So the right legislative environment, the right support to the industry to be able to do that, we see is really critical.
Fantastic. And so you're developing these new biosolutions. What are your key challenges that you have to overcome? There's quite a few there. Things like scaling, regulation, consumer acceptance. What's your biggest, what keeps you up at night?
I think all of those. Let's maybe hit a little bit on consumer acceptance. I think, there's some things that get me very excited as a scientist in the synthetic biology field. It's a new field to me, but a place that I'm an eager student of. So if I look at things like, say, gene editing to get to crops that may be better aligned with the materials that we need, there's all kinds of development that we can be and are excited about. I think the watch out is, we see consumers becoming increasingly wary of science, increasingly distrustful. If you think about things that are going on right now, like the anti-vaccine movement as an example, you can think about where is science seen in the consumer's mind. And I think we have a lot of work to do, actually, a lot of work to do to ensure that we're translating these solutions into concepts that can be easily understood. The 30-second TikTok video it's a challenge to bring this to life for our consumers, but that's something that we're thinking a lot about.
And also, I guess there is concern about how products might compete with food. How do you sort of deal with that?
We hear that sentiment. That is a sentiment that I think we want to be part of addressing. I think in general, again, Jessica's panel taught the criticality of agriculture to providing a lot of the carbon mass that we need going into materials in the future, and I think that's spot on. One of the pieces that we're conscious of and that we've invested a lot in is the ESG elements of competes with food, appropriate labor conditions depending on where the crop's being grown, and so on and so forth. So it continues to be something to be aware of.
Okay, so looking to the future, which areas of bioinnovation do you think hold the most promise for future advancements?
I think, I mentioned synthetic biology a minute ago, but I think things like gene editing to get to crop outputs that are closely aligned to the needs in industry is a really interesting space. I think the more that we can have, the plant to do beyond photosynthesis to for example, vegetable oil, like the more that we can maybe tailor the properties there, the more useful we can make that the crop and the more relevant to our industry. So I would say gene editing is a space that's very interesting for us right now.
We have a panel tomorrow afternoon on AI. Does that feature in your thinking at all?
I think it features in everybody's thinking, right, at the moment. So I would say yes to that, without sharing specific examples, but yes.
Fantastic. This event is all about partnerships, bringing companies together. How do you think brands and bio-innovators can best partner to deliver the next generation of bio-solutions?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I think, we're sort of for us at least, at a point where biosciences become more and more relevant and interesting. So maybe, a few years ago, this would have been seen more in the pharmaceutical or medical space. But I think now the affordability of some of the biosolutions becomes increasingly viable for a consumer products company. So what becomes then, I think, very important, inherently important for us, is to really start to become more fluent in each other's language. So I would say within P&G, we have quite a depth in chemical, mechanical engineering, scale up and running large-scale supply chains is what we know well. What we are, I think, learning is more the language of biology, of life science. And I think it's just important that we learn to speak each other's languages, and I think that's what then drives the partnership. But I think it's growing that fluency in the different disciplines, and yes, learning the language of each other is really enabling those partnerships to happen.
Talking of learning the language, how did a British guy end up in Cincinnati? And
It's a long story. So I mentioned I've been in P&G for 30 years. So I spent about a decade in Europe. I spent about 5 years actually in Japan, and then in Cincinnati for 16 years now. So it's where I proud to call home, and where my children have grown up. So very happy there.
Fantastic. And over the next couple of days, what do you hope to get out of the conference?
Yeah, thanks, Leo. Again, thank you for pulling this all together. I think this is tremendous. I'm really looking forward to, as I mentioned earlier, meeting folks in different agricultural industry, in different sectors that I'm learning and learning that language and learning more about the value chain end to end is what's really important, so that we can find those opportunities. And yeah, really, for me, it's all about serving consumers. That's what I've been loving to do for the last 30 years, and I'm excited to meet some new folks and get some good ideas to help me in that journey. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your thoughts there. That's a very brief snapshot at the work that Alan is doing there at P&G. He'll be here for the next couple of days, so please do grab him to pick his brains on the subject. But thank you very much, Alan Davies.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you.